Warning, the following program contains extreme coarse language and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is extremely advised. Good evening, it's ADC. We're talking truth. It's Talking Truth Thursday. And viewer discretion is always advised. Might get a little bit of profanity, but hopefully we can keep that down to a minimum. Welcome to the most censored show online. As you can tell, you can't find us a lot. When we go, we have our streams shut down midstream. So, unlike the capitalists that are claiming they're censored, we're actually censored. So, like, subscribe, smash that like button, all those capitalist things here for YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, Facebook. Like and subscribe on, or share, follow us on Twitter, all those things across the board, as well as in the info on the video itself. And we're doing something a little different tonight. We're going to talk pro wrestling. We've covered a lot of really important topics, and we want to take a little break this week. I don't know if it's really a break, because pro wrestling gets fired up, get people going. So it's pro wrestling and sports entertainment, because with Vince McMahon and the WWE, they are sports entertainers. AEW is going the route of pro wrestling. The wrestling I grew up with was actually Stampede Wrestling. I grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan, for anyone who didn't know, and attended pro wrestling matches for Stampede Wrestling at the Exhibition Auditorium in Regina on every third Tuesday, I believe it was, by the time I was attending on a regular basis. Saw some great matches there. That was the wrestling that I grew up with, which then shifted with the sale of the the sale of Stampede Wrestling, or supposed sale, the agreement of Stu Hart providing Vince McMahon with Stampede Wrestling. Of course, historians will know that brought Bret and Jim Neidhart as well. Bret the Hitman Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and the British Bulldogs. But then they were supposed to do some things. Stu never got the money, all these different things. What you will realize, pro wrestling, when we're talking truth, it is a very shady business. You see some of the specials, Vice, great series, The Dark Side of the Ring. See some of that good stuff there. But it's one of those things where if you're in the business, how do we put this? I mean, if you're in the business, you're okay, but you're only okay to a certain point. I mean, things have changed, of course. Contracts are much better than they were when I first started watching and connecting, and when I went to look at going into wrestling school and all these different things. That was a lot different than it is now. But there's still, as our friend Jim Cornette would say, the mud show shows where they have yeah, basically you got promoters that are the carny, which we bring to that WWE aspect of Vince McMahon, who basically is the Barnum and Bailey of the sports entertainment. And Vince just coming back to the WWE, if you weren't aware, he had gone due to a number of allegations of misconduct, as well as spending money from the organization uh, to pay off some of the victims in these allegations. Yeah, he is one of a kind. Sold. The rumors were that they were going to sell for somewhere around $7 to $9 billion. Well, he got his $9 billion, and yeah, that's where we'll start it off here. The latest in the WWE. If you watched WrestleMania, you were quite disappointed in night two. Night one was fantastic. Night two was very much not a lot to watch. Very, very frustrating. As Triple H always says, they do what's best for business. I do not think they did what's best for business on that night too, in regards of the Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes feud, and not putting the belt on Cody. Yeah, eventually they're going to put the belt on Cody. They say it's the build. It's just the story starting, and they're going, well, it's long time. Like Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman were talking about long-term storytelling, and that would be okay if the story didn't start. And I just watched the WWE 24 with the family. Great job. Very entertaining. One of my favorite parts of the business nowadays is watching the actual people outside of their characters and being themselves. And it was from last year's WrestleMania, which was in Texas. And if you would remember, then that's when Cody, who left, got his release from or did not re-sign in AEW after helping start the organization, went back to the WWE and returned for his debut match at WrestleMania against Seth Rollins. So fast forward, Cody gets hurt, ends up tearing his pectoral muscle. If you haven't seen the match, him versus Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell, fantastic match. I don't know how Cody did it. You can see like it, just brutal, but a really good match. You can see the bruises on him and just the damage that happened. And then he came back this year in 2023 to compete in the Royal Rumble and win the Royal Rumble, which gives him the chance to meet Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship, which he did at WrestleMania. So we're going WrestleMania to WrestleMania. It's full year. Cody Rhodes did the roads to the top and then got faltered. And they decided that they weren't going to do this and they're going to continue with Roman Reigns. The whole thing is they want to get him to 1,000 days of holding the belt. There's talk of him trying to break Bruno Sammartino's record. Bruno's record, if he did, he'd have to be the champion until 2028. Sure, that's long-term storytelling and long-term booking, but my God, I don't know many people that would be excited to watch Roman Reigns hold the belts for another 5 years. Nothing against Joe Anawahi, the actual person behind Roman Reigns. I think he's a fantastic performer and all-around good person, but the Roman Reigns character itself is awful and stale. And you can say, oh, he does great things or whatever. fans and viewers always complain about John Cena having 6 moves. Well, Roman Reigns doesn't have that many more than those 6 moves. So, my opinion, feel free to jump on the YouTube channel and jump in the chat. We will answer questions, share your thoughts, all those sorts of things. Yeah, so which got us to the end of WrestleMania and all this rumor of Vince McMahon coming back. And we're going, okay, he's coming back. He's going to sell. Great. This is the end of like Vince is going to do. He's going to ride off in the sunset with all his money. And then we get the information that the sale has happened, but it's not quite the sale that everyone was projecting.
This is the biggest thing Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon have ever done.
Yeah.
Combining forces like this there's nothing like this. There's never been anything like this. People have been talking about this for a long time.
There were a lot of other suitors
sure
here.
Were, but Ari, really, the synergies, everyone was very interested in us, and I appreciate that. But the synergies that Ari brings.
So we're just going to pause there. Anyone who's not familiar with the story, the synergies of Endeavor brings a different than anyone to Vince McMahon when he's selling this, selling the WWE. Well, ultimately, the sale is not a straight sale. Ultimately, it is a basically a conglomeration of Endeavor, UFC, and the WWE. And with this massive monopoly of sports entertainment and entertainment itself, if you're not familiar with Endeavor, Ari, the head of Endeavor, if Ari, the name Ari sounds very familiar, the infamous Jeremy Piven played him in the TV series Entourage. So that was Jeremy Piven's character, Ari, in Entourage, is based off of Ari, who owns Lock, Stock, and Barrel Endeavor. And him saying that he wanted to get Vince in and all these different things. Yeah, it's $9 billion. There's a lot of money being put in here. But it's very interesting, these comments here. And like I said,
totally different than everyone else.
That said, many doubted we would ever see this day.
So people say they'd never see the day of the WWE being sold. Vince McMahon leaving after what he did to his own father to get the organization. That's a story that will not be told probably, because in this agreement, if you go into the meat and potatoes of the agreement, you see Vince signed just a sweetheart deal that pays him X amount of dollars a year. He's got a position on the board to be the head of WWE still, as well as the all the intellectual rights to Vincent K. McMahon and Mr. McMahon and all the different characters that he played, something that he would never do for his own, while other performers were asking for these things. I know there's a lot of performers that fought long and hard for their own names, for the intellectual property. There was the lawsuit that he filed against Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, in regards to the outsider characters, because they were Razor Ramon and Diesel in WCW, which they weren't. They were actually themselves, but that's beside the point. So he's not a guy who likes to give up his intellectual property or the rights to the intellectual property. He wants WWE to own that, except when it comes to him, he wants to own that as well as own his life story. So when we're saying we're never going to, probably we'll never hear the true story behind his acquisition from his father, who he had to pay. I mean, there's all these stories of historic stories of paying Vince Sr.'s partners, which included Gorilla Monsoon and Arnold Skoland and a number of performers and businessmen based out of the New York area. Vincent K kept a lot of these guys on payroll. Did really good with Gorilla Monsoon, actually, in ensuring that elevated him. Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan were one of the best, if not the best, commentating duo in history of WWE. Close second would be Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross. And then third, we would say right now, we were looking at a Michael Cole and Pat McAfee, and which is shocking to anyone who has watched WWE for long periods of time, that Michael Cole is entertaining, but with Pat McAfee, he currently is. Back to the Endeavor deal here, as Vince and Ari sit down with CNBC.
You would ever be willing to sell a controlling stake in your company.
Right.
You are the WWE, and the WWE is you. So why?
It's the right time. It's the right time.
So just going to pause there. One of the biggest things that's really going around wrestling fandom right now is Vince McMahon's mustache and his voice, where it's the right time, where he used yelling so much during his time as an announcer. If you grew up around my age and growing up watching the WWE in the 80s, Vince McMahon was the lead play-by-play. He was the lead announcer, lead broadcaster on the shows, and was the lead for Monday Night Raw until he stepped away and Jim Ross took his spot. But all that stuff, and Jim Cornette said it too, in regards to the voice deepens, your vocal cords. Basically, some of the guys that have screamed used a lot of like changing their voice, over inflecting during their talking, have like damaged their vocal cords and whatever. So Vince is clearly damaged something in his time of the yelling, "You're fired," and all those different things that he's done as Mr. McMahon and as Vince McMahon behind the scenes. He's also damn near 80 years old. With all that being said, jet black hair and this mustache. And this mustache, I know John Oliver was commenting about it. Jim Cornette and Brian Last were commenting about it. I mean, a lot of people are commenting about it. Vincent Price, he's got the Vincent Price vibes. Saw basically John Waters is what I pictured, especially the character that John Waters voiced for The Simpsons as John. Has that sort of thing. Cartoon villain. Yeah, like the running joke where Vince coming back. So with this Endeavor deal, before this, he came fully back, and now he's in charge of creative of the WWE. And Ari talked about in other parts of the video or the interview how he wanted Vince, and Vince needed Vince because Vince is the genius behind the WWE. When we look at the numbers, actually, when Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, took over from Vince, that's when the ratings increased. You saw better storylines, you saw better writing, you saw better producing, a lot better matches, performance based, as opposed and rest and more athletic, as opposed to promos. Vince comes back, and not only did he was he a part of crapping on night 2 of WrestleMania, but really dropped the ball with probably the worst Raw after WrestleMania ever. Monday Night Raw is like the flagship The one after WrestleMania is always a very important one, and this one was not important and did some silly things in regards to decisions being made, and Vince is behind the scenes doing these things. Triple H says that he's not. Triple H says that he's that himself, Paul Levesque, are making these decisions, and he's made these decisions. But we all know from past experiences, if Vince McMahon is affiliated with this organization, he's the one with the final eraser or pencil. As the promoter, a lot of longtime wrestling performers and personalities will say that the biggest weapon in a promoter's or booker's arsenal is the pencil. It's actually the eraser. And so Vince is the one with final say on all these things. So if you saw Monday Night Raw or you saw WrestleMania or any of these things, you can see this has Vince's fingerprints all over it. And yeah, why he continues on talking about why he did this deal.
Time to do the right thing. And it's the next evolution of WWE. I could probably do what Ari is right now with UFC. It'd take me 10 years, you know. By the time I would grab those 10 years, he'd be 10 years ahead again. So it's like, it makes all the sense in the world for all these synergies that we have, you know, to extract all of the value we can out of the marketplace.
The deal values UFC, you mentioned some numbers, $12 billion and WWE at $9.3 billion. That's a big number. Well, the WWE's market cap is 6.5.
Here's what I would say to you. Exactly why we did this, because I think we weren't getting the pure value. I don't think the WWE
We'll just unmute there. There we go. So yeah, pause there. Ari is is talking about the number, and the fact is that that number is a lot larger than people were projecting, and it's a lot of projection. And so when we're coming to the business side of pro wrestling, it's a lot of, like, now we're getting into the bean counting. Like before, it was bean counting when it came to networks and when you were being measured on ratings. Now it's based on projection and projection of sales, projection of buy rates, all these different projections. And that's where we're looking at the number that they're claiming, like the CNBC reporter asking, saying that's a really big number. This should have been evaluated at X amount of dollars and whatever. And Ari's coming in to say, well, yes, but it's because of these things that we've evaluated and value these companies higher than what they really should be, and based on projection. So that's the problem with projection. Problem with the business is now, like I said, we have a monopoly here. If they could use their stuff for good, be a different story. But right now, and as history has shown us with Vince McMahon and his ideas, it's not about for the fans, it's about for the shareholders. So this just adds another layer of shareholders on top of what the WWE had at the time. So then you're going to see a lot more things coming in based on what does it mean for the shareholders. To hell with the fans. And with the deals that they sign, pro sports are signing these exclusivity deals. The one thing, as much as I know wrestling and have followed wrestling, whatever, I've not been in the wrestling industry outside of co-promoting a local fundraising show that didn't go as planned, but learning on the fly there and learning never to do some of those things again. But on the other side of it, merchandise, and I do know a fair bit about merchandise, as you've seen me on a number of these episodes talking about the merchandise that we offer to ourselves and how we make it ethically produced, and all those different things. And the WWE has signed a deal with Fanatics. Now the NHL signed a deal with Fanatics. It's just a matter of time before other ones. And Fanatics is the mass producer of these things. And a lot of the stuff they produce is garbage. And it is not quality. And the fans are going to be punished for these exclusivity deals. And so bringing in Endeavor, and we go back to what the Endeavor thing means. So, like I've said, that the Ari character on Entourage is based on Ari Emanuel. The Endeavor banner, or the organization Endeavor, it holds a lot of things. And Ari, like said in Ari in Entourage, was an agent. Well, Ari is an agency. So Endeavor is an agency, and they have connections to Hollywood and all these different projects, and they can negotiate for your WWE performers, which sounds good on the one side, but if they're making the deal, what's based on what's best for Endeavor. It's not necessarily what's best for the performer. But that's projection on my side, but that's where their projection is. So the fact that they're a Hollywood agency and all these different things and creative, that's why they believe that this deal is valued higher than what it was projected to be.
WWE was getting combined. It's rarefied air, the two of us. And I think the analysts will be able to do it. It's good for the shareholders of WWE and for the shareholders of Endeavor. And then when you look back, I don't believe that the Endeavor shareholders were getting pure play for the rest of the asset that we had. And I think for the first time, you now have the ability to do that in both situations. And that's a win-win, which is what Vince and I have always talked about.
When I throw those kind of numbers out to you, I mean, the word on the street was that you wanted $9 billion. This values the WWE at 9.3.
Right.
So despite everything that's happened,
I'm a visionary.
well, you hit the number.
Yes, deservedly so.
But here's what I would also say to you. We paid a fair price, and I'll tell you why. We paid a little bit for control premium. With our cost cuts, their new deals coming up, which is right now, and our cost savings that we think we can extract from the business right now and grow the business with all of our levers, whether it be international sales, domestic, sponsorship, gambling, all the things that we do. I think it's right.
Of the WWE, I gotta stop hitting that mute button. So when Ari was saying about cost cutting, that's a challenge, and that's a challenge in regards to what does that mean for the organization? What does that mean for the staff, because you're not going to need two of everything. So that's where we start to run into concerns on this monopoly and this amalgamation of another monopoly in entertainment or in business, and going to be cost cutting in regards of people losing jobs and possibly performers losing their jobs and those sort of things, because a lot of this stuff on the WWE is based on the revenue collected through the TV rights deals, which are all coming up. And the big deal that was paid was $1 billion by Fox. While the product is not as strong as it was when they first signed the deal, the stars are not as strong as they were, or they haven't been able to build up the stars needed to grow that product or to provide that return on investment. So if we're looking at that piece of the puzzle, most likely the TV rights deals are going to be a lot less than what they were. And when Ari is talking about amalgamation, he's looking at the rate card for advertisers, so the WWE, and saying, well, right now the advertising rate card is very low for the quality of program that they can provide and the advantage or the access to viewers that they can provide. That's they're not selling it at a good enough price point. So he's saying that they're going to increase the rates for advertisers. So if your product is not as strong as it was, your performers aren't as strong or as over as they once were, you're going to increase the price for your advertisers. Your TV rights deals will not be as much. I'm starting to question, where are you coming with this evaluation of this X amount of billions of dollars? So it's like $23.5 billion evaluation of all three companies in synergy. I can't see it. And unless they do something totally drastic and different in the way they're presenting the WWE, there's going to be a lot of people losing a lot of money and a lot of jobs. And that's a very disappointing piece to this, and why I question these amalgamations and question the fact that you're keeping a almost 80-year-old man in charge of a product that clearly, when he was in charge, was struggling. And then when he wasn't in charge, it started to grow. But I guess we'll give that one the benefit of the doubt. So another thing we're looking at tonight is, so we always say that we're going to be on utilize our platform to cover topics that, and we always say that we have uncomfortable conversations in a comfortable environment. As you can tell, wearing hats. We've got the new studio background, which is great, which very happy with the new setup coming along. Again, want to support the show and get us out there to not be as censored. You can like and subscribe above. Visit the code-fi.com/talking truth for official show merchandise. Now, when we're talking about said that uncomfortable conversations, well, outside of WrestleMania, there was a number of events that took place during WrestleMania weekend in Los Angeles. And one of those was the was a fan fest, WrestleCon, and there was some certain a very unfortunate incident took place at that WrestleCon, and but the one fortunate part, so very unfortunate, it affected long-term time performer here out of Alberta, and a current WWE legend. So Giselle Shaw trained at the Storm Wrestling Academy, was a featured performer in a number of the independent scene here in Alberta, as well as around the world, really. Had recently signed with Impact Wrestling, has been doing great things for the female division on Impact, and doing great performance and those sort of things, and is growing from these sort of aspects of what you're growing the in the industry. I mean, she's always been a fantastic performer. If you've seen her locally and that sort of thing, and but it was recently that she came out acknowledging her being a transgender performer and a member of the 2S LGBT QTIA plus community. And so a lot of people celebrating that aspect, which is absolutely 100% correct. But it was an incident that happened at the WrestleCon that caused Giselle and some people some frustration, and it's one of those things where you're going, I don't know why. And so when we're looking at that, I'm going to go to one of my favorite podcasts, and it's the Jim Cornette Experience. And we're going to let Jim tell the story of how it took place.
Speaking of a veil of tears, lots of people upset. Lots of people pissed off this weekend at one of the fan fests, and you might be able to identify specifically which one. I just know it was one of the WrestleMania weekend festivities from one of the other companies, not the WWE itself. And Rick Steiner got in a world of trouble, and people are just, I saw some of this on Twitter. Is like, my God, he's achieved the rare, I think, getting everybody on the same page fucking trick where everybody's universally saying, fuck you. What, do we have any more information on what went on past a tweet that one of the girls at Impact Wrestling sent out of what he had said to her or done, at the Fan Fest, and then the Fan Fest people have asked him not to come back?
Well, she tweeted out what happened. It was, I believe, corroborated by an Impact referee who also heard it. I don't know for sure if he was with her or just in the background and heard it happen, but there's a second person who heard it. And WrestleCon is the convention. They immediately asked Rick Steiner not to come back for the remainder of the proceedings this weekend and banned him from all future conventions.
So just pause right there. So we had this incident that basically Rick used derogatory terms and language towards Giselle, and then continued on with those. And it was unprovoked in regards of any sort of thing. There's been a story that's come out recently in regards to her being at the booth that possibly was interrupting the line to the Steiners booth. Regardless of, like, talking with my wife on this, this is one of those things where you could just be polite and say, hey, you know what, you're blocking the booth, would you mind moving or whatever. And it was brought up that Scott, his brother, said that a derogatory term, and that's when Rick piled on. Now, the point is not about Rick Steiner. Don't give two shits about Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner, whatever. Like, these fucking guys clearly are not learning when it comes to dealing with society or maturing or fucking evolving past the dinosaurs that they were in the ring. But the point being here is Jim Cornette. Not everyone, a lot of people shit on Jim Cornette, and rightfully so in regards to some of the stuff that he's done in the past. But we're looking at Jim Cornette in 2023, not Jim Cornette in 1983 or 1993 or 2003. We're looking at Jim Cornette in 2023 or 2022. And Jim Cornette has evolved. Unlike the dinosaurs of the Steiners, Jim Cornette understands the concept of treating a human being with respect. Might not necessarily understand, as myself, I'm not a member of the 2S community. Our oldest child is. We learn more from them, learn more from friends and colleagues and comrades. They're part of the 2S community, the trans community. But I don't understand what it's like to be a transgender person because I'm not one. But I also understand that transgender is an identity. That is what a person is as a human being. So we've got a lot of people that are claiming that we should cut the trans and the 2S and the non-binary genders out of the LGB. They want just to be LGB and not be queer, not be trans, and not be all this. So, going back to Jim Cornette here, very proud of, and Jim should be proud of himself on how him and Brian deal with this. It's brilliant. And yes, there's been, like, this is from right after the incident. There's been another one, and the link is in the information for the show, in our show notes, in where you can see this week's or the latest episode where he had a listener contact him with a different description of what went on in this incident. But that's not the point. The point is the fact that Jim Cornette and Brian Last, your two hosts and co-hosts of the Jim Cornette Experience and the Drive Through with Jim Cornette, is number one of the highest rated, highest listened to wrestling shows, podcasts in the world, has a huge listener base, is a Southern guy from Louisville, Kentucky. Brian's from New Jersey, from Long Island and New Jersey. But both these men who, like, and Jim's been accused of being a misogynist in the past, have no problem speaking on what it means, what you should do with a person from the trans community.
a person appearing at a fan fest is walking by, even if you think that? Why would you be so incensed that you would just burst out in public in front of people with it? Could there be pre-existing heat? But then I don't know where they would even have crossed paths. But then I thought, how the fuck does Rick Steiner, who I guarantee you, Rick Steiner pays less attention to fucking wrestling than you and me, Brian, and we didn't know Giselle Shaw. So how did he even know her or her backstory or whatever the fuck? So I'm like, is somebody winding him up?
So we'll pause there. Yeah, someone was winding him up. It was Scott.
But so that's,
or perhaps he's just an ignorant moron.
Well, no, but that
has to be an
saying,
option too.
I'm not defending him. I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to come up with any way to figure out why this was necessary in his mind that he should do this. And
see, that's the thing.
Can't really think of one.
You said it before.
I don't know.
Even if you're ignorant enough to think these things, right? Even if you're that way, what would cause you to just yell them out at someone and then think you're going to actually get away with that kind of thing? That's just stupidity. So ignorance and stupidity.
That's what I'm saying. Did somebody go, hey, look at that fucking person over there, and they said this and did that and whatever the fuck? But still, that's not just... Why would he instantly be angry and upset about somebody else that he don't know, has never met, and what they're fucking doing? And see, that's where in transphobia, again, I don't know if it's fear of trans people or it should be trans hatred, because then you hate trans people, right? He wasn't running in fear from her. He was, fucking maligning her.
Again, just pause there. Jim is 100% correct in regards of this trans hatred. This whole concept of transphobia is bullshit, because it's not a fear of transphobia. Because most of these people that are against the trans community, they aren't scared of the trans community. They hate the trans community. They want to eliminate the trans community. It's the same as the fucking Nazis and Hitler in regards to people having to wear the pink triangle if you were a member of the 2S community. So the gay, lesbian, whatever the case may be, you had to wear one of those when you're in Auschwitz. So when Jim Cornette, who's in his 60s, Southern as the fucking day is long, and Brian Last, who is in his 40s or 50s, who would be considered as old school or whatever, can have the most intelligent conversations on a wrestling podcast to describe what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing to a person in the 2S community. I fucking applaud them for this. This is why I listen to Jim Cornette. Yes, he has some fucking really disturbing shit when it comes to his his stories. They're freaking entertaining. Highly recommend the podcast and the YouTube channel and all those sort of things. Subscribe. It's great. I mean, like I said in the show notes, listen to Jim Cornette's podcast on a weekly basis. I watch Brian Zane and Wrestle with Regret. Every time the guy comes back, I do watch Botchamania, just because, not because I want to watch the botches, especially the ones that are just a fucking disaster, but love the earlier ones where they caught the performer. They had the film, and you saw it at WrestleMania. John Cena, as anyone doesn't know, is one of the worst performers in hiding the call of the match. So when John Cena says blah blah blah, you're gonna fucking hear it. It doesn't matter if you're in the front row or 3 rows back or whatever. The TV camera always gets it. He talks to his opponent and tells him what's the next move that's going to happen. So Anyway, that's why I watch Botchamini, listen to Cornette, but I mean, really gained a lot of respect for Jim and Brian in regards to how they dealt with Giselle Shaw, and showing respect that she damn well deserves, even though Jim knows Rick Steiner, has worked with Rick Steiner, has known him for a lifetime, but does not put up with the bigotry, does not put up with the hatred and all this other stuff. Some of the stuff that he said in the past absolutely could be considered racist or homophobic or any of those sort of things. But like when I tell people, and you can see when you go to our store, don't be a trash person. Don't be transphobic. Don't be racist. Don't be ableist. Don't be sexist. Don't be homophobic. And we can work together. Well, Jim might have been any of those things in the past, but sure as shit, he's not now. And I would gladly work with him in regards to the fact that he's evolved. Unlike Rick Steiner, unlike Scott Steiner, unlike a lot of other performers. So that is what I have to say about Jim Cornette. So when he's talking about, like, he's very much anti-Republican or anti-GOP or whatever, which I don't blame him. I'm anti that too, but I'm not as comfortable with the Democrats as Jim Cornette is. So when he goes into a tirade about why Rick Steiner being a Republican, he's not a fucking Democrat and all these things, I disagree with that aspect, basically, because politically the Democrats are just a underlying evil. So Jim and I will never get along when it comes to politics, just in the aspect of him very much supporting the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. And I mean, we both can fucking hate Donald Trump, but I don't have a love for Joe Biden or the Democratic Party. But we go back to the point here, and what, like I said, I want to use the platform, regardless if we have 1 viewer, 12 viewers. Would love to see this thing go longer than or go viral. Is the fact that you have a performer, and this thing is taking forth and fucking forever to load. Gonna have to find a different story here because that one is not good. But the point being, when we're talking about the back to the 2S community, we're talking about members of the 2S community, we're talking about, there we go, that one will work. I'm just going to share my screen here, and we talk about what does it mean for the Christians. And like you're seeing right now, a lot of the venom coming from the right or the centrists or whatever are from the white privileged colonizing Christians. So let's look at Nyla Rose making history as AEW's first transgender wrestler. So we talked about Giselle Shaw, who's believed transgender wrestler. But the whole thing is they're not touting, and Giselle's not touting it. I mean, she stood up for the for the 2S community and told her side of the story, but she's not being promoted as a transgender wrestler. She's being promoted as a female wrestler, and that's what Nyla Rose is as well in regards to performing and competing in the female division. And we're looking at these sort of things, and the checkered past of the 2S community. Love seeing more of the connection with the Pat Patterson, as much as I don't like to give Dwayne Johnson a lot of credit in regards to what he's doing with the Young Rock. He did cover Pat Patterson being openly gay behind the scenes to his fellow workers, not to the fans until it came up with Legends House. But covering that story. Back to Nyla Rose, significant feud, not as prominent on the show as she was now, but was very prominent in the first few years of AEW. And why I bring this up is the fact that, like we said, the Christians talk about the trans and the drag performers are what's grooming our children. And while we can't support this, and trans is awful, and all these people are awful, they're evil and whatever, one of the biggest proponents for Nyla Rose and, well, for Giselle Shaw, one of the biggest proponents for them was Chris Jericho. Now, Chris Jericho, love him or hate him, bigger name, but 100% a Trumper, but is also understands he, as much as he can be a shitbag when it comes to taking people's platform and basically killing all their momentum to put himself over. His support for Giselle Shaw is very well appreciated. Also, his support for Nyla Rose is appreciated, and he's had Nyla on his podcast. But the biggest thing that I'd say with the Nyla Rose and the Sunny Kiss and all those sort of things is one of the EVPs in All Elite Wrestling, or two of the EVPs in All Elite Wrestling, I should say, are the Young Bucks. Well, the Young Bucks are devout Christians and like are men of God and all these different things. But when it comes to the business and it comes to their support for the 2S community, here's the Young Bucks official Facebook page. Yes, it's from 2019. She was a strong competitor back in 2019. Doesn't change it. I mean, it's better it was in 2019. The fact that Nyla Rose will participate in a Reddit. Ask Nyla anything. They ran a Reddit interview with Nyla Rose. Promote Nyla Rose. Again, the Young Bucks are EVPs of AEW and devout Christians. And they support Nyla Rose, and they support Sunny Kiss, and they support all members of the 2S community involved in AEW and outside of AEW. And they're Christian. So don't tell me, if you're Christian, that you can't support that, because we have people that are fucking 100% Christian, wear the fucking crucifix in the ring, will quote Bible verses wherever, and support the 2S community and their friends, their performers, because they're just people. This is what you got to understand. If you are a trash human being, transphobic, racist, ableist, sexist, or homophobic, fuck off. We're not going to work with you. If you were that, let's work together, because you need to understand, when we're coming from the 2S LGBTQTIA+, we'll take the 2S off for this moment here. So LGB, lesbian, gay, bisexual. You want to split that because you don't want to be affiliated with the trans. You're Christian, you're conservative, you're a fuckwad, because you're calling out people saying, I don't want Stonewall. You wouldn't fucking be alive if it wasn't for those trans fucking heroes at Stonewall that fucking put their lives on the line so you could fucking live your life. So when we're talking about the split there. So the 2S, the trans, the queer, the non-binary, all those sort of things, that is based on identity. That has nothing to do with your sexuality or any sort of thing to do with perversion or sexuality. People that are weaponizing it of that are false. When you go the LGB, that's based on sexuality. Yes, it's also identity, but it's based on not necessarily sexuality, but attraction. So who you're attracted to is your LGB. Your other part is identity. So when you can get that through your thick fucking skulls, maybe we can have a conversation on how we can work together with the 2S community to take on the fucking machine, to take on the elite. And not the fucking elite in AEW that play the elite, but we're talking the elite. We're talking about the fucking bankers. We're talking about the people that are killing society on a daily basis. So that's why I won't fucking go and hang out with the doorknobs and fucking go and play footsie with the fucking fascists and the alt-right, because you can't, because they'll fucking kill you. So if you're a Christian and you think that you can be lesbian, gay, and bi and get rid of the trans and the rest of them because that's what the right wants you to do, as Goldberg says, you're next. Again, like the show, subscribe all across the board. You want to, huge thanks to our friend Renee, who purchased one of the fantastic mugs that we were talking about, the trash mug. And you can purchase your own trash mug. Just go to ko-fi.com/talkingtruth, aka coffee.com/talkingtruth. And you can go and check out our shop. And our shop has a number of amazing items, including the new propaganda to protect and serve and all other thin blue lies, ACAB. Biggest danger of taking your child to a drag show is a Christian arriving with a gun. Respect the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, or I'm going to identify as your problem. And don't be trash, transphobic, racist, ableist, sexist, homophobic. Unity with dignity. All these available at ko-fi.com/talkingtruth. Links are in the show notes. Shop there, support the show, all those sort of things. Tune in next week when we are talking truth about Take Back Alberta. We got the journalist whose story went viral about Take Back Alberta, what's behind it, all those sort of things. We'll be talking one-on-one with them, possibly a couple others who have been reporting on this, but we're going to talk about Take Back Alberta and why it's a fucking danger for everyone in Alberta. So if you're in Alberta, there's a misinformation going out there that you have to register to vote. You don't. You just have to show up at the voting station on the day of with your ID, and you will be able to vote. And if you do vote, vote for the strongest candidate that will represent you locally. Fuck the party politics. Vote third party or independent. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next week.